Facebook. We're here, back at it, Thursday morning, 10 a.m. Criminal Justice Cafe conversations with the one and only Rick Speck, straight out of Detroit, from Safe and Just, Michigan. He's out there with Troy Rienstra, Kate McCracken, and that whole team doing some awesome work. Rick's going to give us some updates this morning about what's going on out there, the Safe and Just, and then I'm going to do some updates on with Fresh Coast. Kind of, I at least, Rick, I don't think we've ever sat down and just talked about a little bit about what we do with Safe and Just. I think we probably just recapped a little bit about what we do with Fresh Coast, so we could do that. And then this morning we were scheduled to have Asia Johnson from the Bail Project on, and something ended up coming up where she wasn't able to do. She had some power issues at her home, so we'll reschedule, and she'll be on another time. But we'll have Mario Bueno from the Youth Justice Fund joining us to talk about Lunky and some of the reentry work that is going on out there in Detroit, along with Rick. So we'll have a great conversation. Mario will be joining us here in a few minutes, about 10 after. He had to finish up some stuff. It was kind of a last-minute reach out. So we'll be doing that. Rick, why don't you tell us a little bit, just for our new watchers, people just tuning in, Safe and Just, what do you guys do? What's your primary target in the sense of going in and being a solution to an issue, a problem?
So at Safe and Just, we work on criminal justice policy, legislation, and that's the only thing we do. And so that was a part and parcel why I had joined, Safe and Just when I left the ACLU of Michigan, doing the Smart Justice campaign as a community engagement. I seen the opportunity at Safe and Just to really be able to inform on some legislation and policy work, that's going to affect men and women like me, for decades and decades to come. So that was what drew me to Safe and Just, was the fact that that's all we focus on, making safer communities through smarter legislation. The reality is in many instances with why we're in this mass incarceration situation is we legislated our way into it, right? We created laws and began to prosecute people in the number of laws that are on the books and how, they were designed. I don't know if the true intent was carried out, but what we know is in order to reduce this, in order to reduce harms in communities, we got to have smarter legislation. And, we're nonpartisan. It doesn't matter on what aisle you sit on or not, right? We're here to work with everybody. We're here to work with the community. We're here to raise voices of impacted and formerly incarcerated folks and community members. We're here literally to represent everybody, right? Because at the end of the day, smarter legislation, safer legislation, it affects all of us, whether you're system impacted, formerly incarcerated or not, or just a regular citizen. This is going to keep you safer, right? As the average Joe. And so that's why it's important to work with everybody on these issues, And so we're happy with the partnerships like Fresh Coast, where we can partner with other organizations who do great work, who are affecting the same population that we are, but just in a different way. So if we can lend ourselves in different ways and support ways, then we're happy to do so. And that again is part of what drew me there, was their mission and vision on how to have outreach across the state and engage rural communities. That's a strategy we're working on. Everybody's voice here has to matter, because this legislation will affect all of us, our children, our grandchildren, their children. So, it's wise to include everybody and not to exclude anyone. So that's something we're proud of, as being an inclusive organization. And another partnership is with SADO. So we have Wellness Wednesday. I do want to give that update. We have Wellness Wednesday. So for all of our formerly incarcerated folks watching, there's flyer posted on their page, my page, Safe and Just page, And next week, we'll be continuing a conversation that I facilitated a few weeks ago on post-incarceration syndrome. And, we got a lot of great feedback. I think people really enjoyed the topic and sharing, the commonalities that a lot of us face, that sometimes we think, hey, this is just me. There's something wrong with me. I'm re-entering back. I'm coming home and certain things don't seem right. And so you begin to think it's just something wrong with you. But then when you talk to other folks and you hear that different people experience something similar, then you begin to understand that, okay, there's nothing really wrong with me. This is something that a lot of people experience. And so we're trying to, remove that stigma, that, the reality is it does, prisons do cause harm, right? You were there, that I was there. That's where we met, right? We shared a cell together. We shared, tragedies and pains. We shared, accomplishments together. But that was something we did. That wasn't anything that was promoted by the Michigan Department of Corrections, right? So yeah, that's a little bit about what we do, the workshop. And let me throw it back to you and give us some updates on Fresh Coast.
Fresh Coast. What's up, everybody? So many of you know, especially those who are in the Muskegon area, a little bit about what we do. Sorry about the noise. I'm doing this outside today. I'm in downtown Grand Rapids, so it may be a little noisy when the trucks go by. So I apologize about that beforehand. It was the only spot I could find outside. So things are going great at Fresh Coast. We've been able to, one of the things that has happened over the whole last several months with COVID, we had to transition from these in-classroom settings to this virtual deal, and we'd start doing interviews and different things off, just like what we're doing now, Zoom and Facebook. The exciting thing was we were able to reach a whole nother crowd that we weren't able to reach, in the classroom. Just many different things. They had, you got children, work, you're not able to do it, but the virtual was able to free it up where a number of people could come and check in. You know what I mean? So that was cool. So we were able to connect with a whole new crowd during this time. So that was neat. So a lot of them have come, checked us out at Fresh Coast and connected with us. And so some of the new stuff we are working on our employment piece during this whole situation here with Corona and getting people plugged in with jobs. So our employment director is starting to, instead of just doing like a cohort group, meeting one-on-one so we can deal with individual basic needs and kind of speed the process up a little bit. So we do have that going, which is really good. And so we just started here the last couple weeks. And so we're going to be able to see what that looks like here soon, because it's just now starting. So we haven't seen if there's any fruit from it, but I'm quite confident it's going to be really, really good on our end. So that's going. And then we have Clear Group, which is going on today back at the building. We have our facilitators there. And that's where we bring local police officers, parole agents, and then formerly incarcerated folk, men and women who may be on parole or probation. And we sit down, and then that's where we have our connection time and just kind of deal with some real issues. Like what is the relationship between law enforcement and formerly incarcerated, right? I think one of the biggest issues that we don't have a lot of discussion on is, this defiant towards authority, right? Because when we go in, it's judges, prosecutors, police officers. And there can be, while individuals are incarcerated, there could be this internal bent towards the police officer who arrested us, the judge who sentenced us, the prosecutor who threw the book at us. The concern is that if we don't pay attention to our thought life and we dwell on those negative thoughts long enough, eventually, without us even knowing, it'll lodge in the back of our mind, and then that'll become our framework for how we view people. And then there'll always be this internal negative bent towards authority. especially with law enforcement. So if we can confront this head on and we can say, hey, you know, every police officer is not bad, and we can understand the framework on why police officers are here and what they do, then I think that can help out a lot more, especially as we move forward in that conversation. So we have that, and we have recovery groups, recovery services. We actually own and operate our own therapy practice too. So we have doctors and therapists on staff. We have an office right here in Grand Rapids. We have one over in Muskegon as well. So with behavioral health, substance use disorder, trauma therapists. So we have all the professional help that individuals will need when they come home as well too. And then we deal a lot with the thinking patterns. I like unraveling the conflicted life on the inside. That's one of my passions is presenting new realities, new truths that'll be beneficial to us, as opposed to still holding on to negative thoughts of wondering why I'm living in self-defeat, right? I can't understand why I can't move forward. I don't understand. Well, you know, it all starts here. As a man thinketh, so is he. So you are just a complete expression from the way that you think. And we sometimes we have to have a paradigm shift where it shifts our whole realm of thinking. So that's a little bit about what we do at Fresh Coast. And I see Dr. Bueno has joined us, and we are going to jump right into him. Mario, why don't you take about a minute, just introduce yourself, and then we can get going with our interview here.
You ready, Mario? Give us a brief introduction.
Yeah,
There you go.
you were breaking up. You were breaking up a little bit at first, Nate. How you doing? How you doing, Rick?
Doing good, man. Good seeing you, brother.
Likewise. Under these conditions, I hope everything is going well for you. And it sounds like it is.
Yeah, it is. Things are going great, man. So, did you hear my question? Go ahead, introduce yourself, Mario. Tell us about.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was breaking up significantly. Yeah, so no, Mario Bueno, I'm a returned citizen. It'll be 7 years, I think, approximately this come January. Currently appointed as a community engagement coordinator for the Youth Justice Fund, which the job focus entails more so community engagement with our clients that are former juvenile lifers. We're talking about a population of men and some women serving anywhere from 20 plus to up to almost 50 years of imprisonment since a young age, since we're talking about ages 14 to 17, most being 17 years old. Currently a graduate student at University of Michigan. Actually, I just got off a call. That's why it took so long. I apologize, but with my professor, in which I'm doing a thesis right now. Just starting the thesis process and graduating in December. But the thesis is aimed at the outcomes of peer mentoring for parole reentry. So I guess what we want to do is we want to analyze: are there significant outcomes? Is there a difference between mentoring and peer mentoring? And I think that from the days of old, whether it was Moses, right, you can't lead someone from a place that you haven't traveled. And I think that through a doctoral approach of research and analysis and assessment, I think we can point out significantly that the outcomes are different. The outcomes are significantly different. But not only do we want to show quantitatively, which is numbers, about those who complete parole, those who do not recidivate, those who do not commit new offenses or violate their terms of parole status. Not only do we want to show that, but we want to also redefine the term and the definition of success, right? I think Rick has pointed out on several occasions, is success, does it suffice to say that success is defined as one who does not commit another offense? Or should I say charge and convict of another offense? Because we all know very well that many do come home and never do get charged again, but are committing offenses. Or do we break down what success is? Is success never reoffending but living under a bridge, like Rick would say? Like, are we going to include the quality of life Are we going to include the current challenges, regardless of that number of recidivating men and women, regardless of that number? Are we going to include the fact that most of them are working 2 to 3 jobs and still can't support their own, maybe one child or themselves? Like quality of life standards. So I think that we want to take a deeper dive into what successful reentry is. In this thesis approach I'm taking. Still working obviously with Rick and Cam, in which we have our housing program that came to a halt as a result, I think, for all of us, this COVID-19. But we're a firm believer in that the soil does affect the seed, right? So the environment that you're in, the associations, the relationships that you have before you're released, because it's not a all black or all white. It's not either or concept of differing environments and culture within that subculture of prison. Like it's kind of like high school. You have a high school culture, right? You could say you got a Cody High School in Detroit, which was one of the worst high schools in the nation in terms of outcomes. Or you could say Bloomfield Hills, right? You could say Country Day. And what you say is within that subculture, there's a culture there. There are subcultures and there's subgroups, right? So you got the jocks, you got the cool kids, you got the greasers. But in prison too, you actually have subgroups. So you have pockets of men, and I'm sure that this goes on in the women prison. I haven't had the luxury of being housed there yet. But you have the men, you have subgroups of men that have their own culture. And so what we were blessed to find, I think the last several years of my incarceration was a group of men that embraced a culture of integratis, of integrity, right? Of principles and morals, regardless of your spiritual fervor. Regardless if you were a Muslim, Jewish, a Christian, whatever you were, but we embraced a standard of beliefs that said, "In giving, so shall we receive." That we make the world around us better and clean in front of our own feet. That we resolve our own conflict. That we break down that paradigm of us versus them, like you were so eloquently articulating earlier when I just jumped on. You were talking about how you have a program, I believe, that tries to challenge the belief systems and therefore the thinking and behavior of the criminally minded. But we also have to understand that's not just a criminal mindset, us versus them. Like we're conditioned as such, whether you're saying us, U.S. versus the Chinese, right? The China flu, right? That's a warped mindset. Or whether you're a police officer saying the blue wall of silence, us versus them, right? That's dysfunctional in the very inherent belief system. Therefore, the behavior and the culture will also follow that lead. It'll be dysfunctional. So I think that the environment in which you live in before you come home is going to determine the environment that you gravitate to. So, but right now, because of our past and because of, the doors that have been, whether closed or opened, it's saying my internet connection is unstable. You guys hear me good?
Yeah,
okay. So I think because of the doors that are closed, we would like to be in the prisons right now. And recreating and redesigning what we were able to do at the helm, like Rick was the helm of it was Chance for Life at the time, but we had Deputy Riley who didn't have that us versus them mentality and believed in empowering those that he would like to be empowered and be and take the leadership. He understood that it didn't matter how many officers you had; it was the prisoners who were going to dictate the tempo and the culture, right? So take the leaders, transform them, empower them, and have them be a light into the darkness for those around you, right? So that's what we did inside. We would like to do that again, obviously. But I think that we all understand if I can't get a job with Uber or at Costco, I'm definitely not going to be allowed back in the prison to redesign and recreate it, right? So with that being said, we are recreating and redesigning the soil out here of men and women that are coming home. Because it does behoove us and it concerns us what environment and what associations and what relationships these men and women who are returning at a fragile and impressionable state, who they're around. Because the very sanctity and safety of our community behooves us to take interest, to understand that they are precluded from most pro-social neighborhoods and boroughs because of regulation. Like return citizens can only be housed over here, right? So we have to understand that we are funneling the and that us versus them mindset in actual research, published research is called you're creating a mindset of cynicism. It's called you're creating a culture of cynicism. They're finding a uniform and a common variable amongst the areas where men and women are paroling. They're finding a culture of legal cynicism, meaning that so a group of us that have not been transformed come home from prison. Us versus them mentality, crab in a bucket mentality, woe is me mentality, that everything that's happened to me has happened to me and I haven't been the root or the major underlying factor in what's occurred in my life. And therefore, as long as I look out the window and not in the mirror, I'm not empowered to change where I'm at, right? So we get that group. Now you compound that with let's say over there off Woodward on the east side of Detroit, you compound that and have 3 huge housing units full of that mentality. It's going to leave a residual imprint on that culture around it. And it's good. And what findings show is that it creates a legal cynicism. So then you have the youngsters saying, F the police. Not to say that the police aren't doing anything that deserves that, but it creates a back and forth. Like it's physics, it ain't philosophy, right? Right? So if I do something to you, boom. Inherently so, if you're not a person who embraces forgiveness, which is a concept of Christ, you're going to throw that rock right back when you get tossed a rock. It's harder too, right? So unless you're embracing so we're having negative effects on a culture that I think is also impressionable, which is also disenfranchised, which is also marginalized. And when I say we, it's our brethren that we left behind in prison that are suffering the ill effects of a institution that I think the Quakers started out with penitentiary, which it was a good concept, penance, right? But I think it's become a heavy money maker, and I really believe that anytime you are once you put capitalism in the game, and it's all about the almighty dollar. I'm sorry, but there's certain things, education, healthcare, and penitentiary should not be free market. And that's just my opinion. Of one who has experienced 16 different adult prisons in 19 years from the age of 16, kicked out of 9 of them, right? Kicked out of 9 of them in 3 years in solitary. It should not be for monetary gain. That's just my opinion. And so that's what Luck Inc. is doing in relation to the back end. Obviously, we like to get in the front end, the schools, transforming the young men's, these young kings thinking, right, that have fathers for the most part, that are all in prison, right? All in prison, they're on everybody, but yet once again, and because you're a felon, more likely you'll be precluded from being able to go in and mentor the kids that have most parents are felons, right? So, well, yeah, that's what we're doing in a nutshell. Go ahead, please.
I got a question for you. So in relation to the reentry workbook, why don't you tell us a little bit about why the workbook is necessary, what drew you to this, just a little bit about the history of it, why you did it, maybe a little bit about the workbook itself. And Nate, if you have any questions, please chime in.
Absolutely, I appreciate that. So the workbook that was just published about over a month ago was I would say that it was a lot longer project than that, but concretely, probably a 3-year project. And why is it necessary? We're talking about a process that is a revolving door yearly in terms of numbers. We're talking about approximately, I would venture to say anywhere from 1 to 2 million nationwide are being released from any kind of institution. Now we're talking about institutions anywhere from local jails to all the way to prisons and long term sentences, from 1 week in jail to 25 years in prison. What I learned was when I sat down to reintegrate, what I was asked by a reentry coordinator at the time was, so what do you need? And so I looked at the reentry coordinator and I specifically said I said, if you don't know what I need, then we're in a world of trouble, right? I think that reentry for those who've been incarcerated for any amount of years is challenging at best. Not only are you unfamiliar with what you will experience internally, emotionally, but I think you're definitely ill-equipped pre-release to manage what you feel and what you think internally. I think that a lot of the trauma that one experiences through incarceration, whether at the hands of the very system itself, to where it was me and 100 other juveniles at age 16 years old, butt naked for 7 hours in a cage while officers walk by to prove to us that we will be broken, right? Shut up, and it's a different world now. To every time you get off a visitor, get strip searched, you got to bend over and demasculate yourself. So I think from those minute, systemic, consistent, traumatic experiences, coupled with having to fight for your food, right? Coupled with as a juvenile or as a young man in prison, never been able to lose a verbal or physical fight, right? Conditioned to respond with all challenges and problems with aggression and violence, to come into an environment when you come home to learn, number one, those rules of engagement do not allow for success out here. But number two, not only don't you have to win every fight, but there is no fight. All the way to the level to where you've already won the fight, right? There is no fight anymore. You don't have to win. So a lot of people have told me what I have to do since I've been home. I've heard a lot of people tell others what they need to do while they're transitioning and reintegrating. But I like to liken it to a process, right? So for example, I've got this cup of water here, right? I've got this cup of water with ice. Right. So let's say, for example, you want to go ahead and add a little bit of Kool-Aid to it. Right, just a little bit. What it does, it ends up permeating the entire cup and it becomes a little Kool-Aid. Well, if I want to dilute it again, process, because you went in as a clean cup, then you got a little Kool-Aid in it. Right? No pun intended, though. Not. Right. So, but then you want to dilute it again. So you come home as a dirty cup full of Kool-Aid residue. You went in as a clean water, but you want to dilute. It's process. You got to just keep adding water to it. You got to dilute it. It's a process. It's not about, well, Rick, well, Nate, you just need to forget that. You need to forget about what you went through. No. What it is you dilute it through these processes of pro-social experiences that are, number one, not only nurturing, but number two, they're restorative. Number three, they're accepting. Right? All the things that were the inverse of prison and the culture of prison. Like the system itself have to keep prisoner against prisoner because 30 guards cannot control 1,800 men on a Jackson State prison yard. That's not possible. But guess what? If you got 1,800 men trying to kill each other, it's possible. Divide and conquer, right? So it's a process of transforming your belief systems, your paradigms once you come home. And the reason why it's more so when you come home is because while you're inside and you're taking that 3-hour, 2-hour a week thinking for change class with Mr. Runyon, right? When you're taking that, well, guess what? You got to go. There's 168 hours in a week. So for 3 hours, you're protected with Mr. Runyon for thinking for change. But then for that 165 hours, you out there with my man trying to steal your little Debbie's. Right? So my point is, you can learn the theory, but unfortunately in prison, there's not an environment for application. And that's what we were able to do by the grace and the glory of God, to create an environment in which our students inside will come home to the housing unit. And now the onus was upon them, and the expectations in which we drafted and they signed, it adheres them to applying that which we just talked about. Can't just be theory. It's got to be application. So the workbook is aimed at equipping people that are coming home from prison, coupled with their family members, to prepare them for what they will more than likely go through. It's preferably they get the book 6 months before they come home, but I would say highly suggest for family members as well, because unfortunately my conditioning in which how I respond has pushed a lot of my loved ones away. You know, it's pushed a lot of loved ones away in which that you can't take words back. And so a lot of us who have been in that highly aggressive and highly aggressive environment, you get triggered. And when Nate so accurately said, when you're not aware of your thoughts and your beliefs, then you respond without thinking. So I would suggest that those who were experiencing loved ones who are coming home from prison definitely get the book. It's on Amazon. Never Going Back. A successful guide, a trauma-informed guide towards a successful reentry. It was just released, just published over a month ago. And definitely I would suggest it for family and those brothers and sisters who are coming home from prison. I'm actually setting up a discount for those who are ordering on Amazon and sending directly to the prisons at a 50% discount. So I'm setting that up within the next couple of weeks. So all those orders, those individual orders that would go directly to a prison would be 50% off. And what the last question, what drew me to write that book? I think in a nutshell, it's that my failures, right? Failing forward, my failures in my reintegration has pushed me to try to help better prepare those that are following our lead.
Yeah. No, because you're right, Mario. As I pointed out before, MDOC, you can be a success if you just simply don't reoffend, right? What that quality of life looks like. You could be homeless, you could be have substance use issues that you're still existing in this world. You just haven't been caught. But in stats and numbers, we're sharing that as a success. This person didn't reoffend, and I think that all three of us know that success has to look like a whole lot more than just somebody hasn't been rearrested, recharged, reconvicted, reincarcerated, right? Like, that's not success. I think that is acceptable standard to anybody, to any community, regardless of how you feel about folks that have committed a crime. I don't think that's acceptable to anyone. Nate?
Yeah, I think self-interest would guide us to understanding what environment is existing for those incarcerated, because we are literally breeding homegrown terrorists. We're compounding the issues. Excuse me. They're broken individuals who've been traumatized exponentially before incarceration to experience a significant amount of trauma while they are incarcerated. And I think that because 95% are released, I can't say this enough, it's in our best interest. Self-interest rules the capitalistic markets. It's in our best interest to understand what quality of individual is going to be released of those 95%. What quality? What are we creating to be our neighbors, to be those that service us, right? We think that we can be in these bubbles and protected, right, by this criminal justice phenomena that is at bay. But guess what? It can happen to any of us. And it can happen to the best of us.
So that while you were talking, this thought came in my mind. So would you say for a number of us, I don't know if it would be the majority number or the minority number, that the healing process or the internal restoration process starts on the inside? We can't wait till we get out to begin that, right? The majority of my paradigm shifts, healing processes, the internal restoration for me personally happened as I got into the Word of God and as I renewed my mind to it and as I fellowshiped with other guys on the yard. That's what prepared me to come home. And I think one of the biggest challenges was interacting with people out here. You know what I mean? From going from a high intensity environment to people who moved, in my own opinion, moved slowly, didn't value, it was just like had kind of conformed to society and was like, oh, it is what it is. And I came out hungry, and a number of people told me to slow down. I said, well, I had to put you in a cell for 12 and a half years, and then let somebody tell you to slow down. And now, you know what I mean? Because this is stuff, we walked the yard, we talked, we laid on our bunk, staring up at the ceiling, thinking and dreaming about what we were going to do when we came home, and was intentional about walking back out of what we had walked into. right?
Absolutely.
Part of that healing process, walking back out of that whole process of what we had walked ourselves into.
And you know, Nate, I don't mean to cut you off, but the workbook actually starts off with the beliefs and the thinking paradigms, and it stresses the importance of this walk down well before you come home. Absolutely. It's like I said, it's an object in motion stays in motion. So whatever you're doing before you come home from incarceration, you invariably will continue. Like I literally filled out my FAFSA free application for federal student aid, put it in a self-stamped envelope, sent it home to my mother, and said, mail this out. And I acted like I was already paroled. So when I came home, I had a vision and a dream of going to University of Michigan, and I came home, got my license 6 days later. And on the 9th day, drove myself up to U of M Dearborn. And they said I was already pre-approved for federal aid for Wayne State, Oakland Community College, Wayne Community College, U of M Dearborn. So I had it all already down. I was already available, but I wasn't even paroled yet, right? So I just knew I was coming home within 4 to 6 months. So I walk out there and they say, okay, I said, I'm here to apply. And they said, right over there. And they pointed to the computer. And I walked over there and I looked at the computer, and I give you my word, Nate, I almost broke down crying right there. I didn't know how to turn the computer on. So I walked back to the desk and I said, excuse me, ma'am. I said, I'm a returned citizen, meaning I just did 20 years in prison. I don't know how to turn that computer on. She handed me a paper application. I filled it out. I was denied within 2 weeks. And the letter said, because I was on parole, that they hope that I have a successful 24-month parole, but I can apply 24 months later. I balled that letter up, tossed it out, cried for 3 days, got denied at social work at Wayne State University. Finally, got accepted at Wayne State School of Business. Got my undergrad in accounting in 2 years by the grace and glory of God. And now I'm at University of Michigan Dearborn to be a testimony of what God said, I don't want you to get your undergrad there, son. I want you to teach there. Like I've been filling in literally for lectures this past semester before the COVID, teaching, guess what? Corrections. Teaching criminology and criminal justice classes at the undergraduate level when I cried because I couldn't get in there as an undergraduate, right? That's God. That's God. So when you fall in alignment with what you were designed to become, guess what? There is no competition but you. Like you got to compete with you. I can't take the script or the playbook from Nate or from Rick and win with it. I can't. I can only take the script that I got with me. And the only way to actually find out what that script is to have a close relationship with the source. Excuse me. So in this workbook, you know, in Hebrew translation, God actually means the source. So just for ignorance sakes, because most people hear God, oh, I'm not religious. I'm not either. Jesus wasn't either. Guess what? Religion killed him. Yeah, he healed a guy on the He healed a guy on Sunday, on Saturday, because that was the Sabbath. He healed a guy on the Sabbath and got killed. Imagine what they do to us. I robbed the guy that was healed. You know what I'm saying? Like for real. The audacity of us, right? So I changed the word in the workbook, never going back to the source, because guess what? I'm sorry, I can't lie to you, and I can't give you something I don't have. And the only which way that I've been transformed and I continue to do what I do is by the grace and the glory of the source, the God, the one God.
Yeah, that's good. I love it. Now I just had the thought, this flew out my mind. You got me excited for a minute. Rick, step in while I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, you know, when we were doing updates earlier, the one thing I did forget to mention, as you know, the clean slate bill package, you know, we had a lot going through the Senate hearings, different things. So I do want to invite folks to our YouTube channel where we have those hearings. We have the testimonies that were given at the Senate Judiciary Committee in some instances on clean slate. So we'll probably drop that in the chat as we're going, but just keeping people abreast that, you know, we still have bills that are moving. There's still opportunity to get involved. You know, Safe and Just is very proud of our newsletter. It's very informative on many levels. So, you know, we encourage folks, you know, check out our website, sign up for the newsletter. You know, it doesn't obligate you to do anything other than just be informed. Right?
I definitely want to say that I'm proud of both of you, and that the work that you're doing is imperative. That you know, people must understand that it's not just about who you vote for president. It's not just about who you vote for mayor. It's about our district attorneys. It's about our judges. It's about, and the work that you guys are doing is not soft on crime. It's the understanding that without a restorative process to criminal justice reform, then what we're doing is we're compounding and exacerbating the problem. If we don't allow those who've offended to be held accountable, number one, because I'm not abolitionist, absolutely not. I live with these men, right? So no accountability, but restoration and edification of behavior, true education, like a restorative process to coming back to the community to be an asset instead of a liability. If it doesn't make dollars, it don't make sense.
No, I love it. Yeah, it's the dual role of being held accountable, right? And also restorative. It's two sides of the same coin. And we have to have both in order for it to be true justice, right? So, all right, it's that time to wrap us up, close this up. So, hey, we appreciate everyone tuning in. Thank you for Mario for coming and hanging out with us. And also, you have your autobiography, right? Your memoir. Also,
yeah. Actually, I put a stop to print on on Reform, because actually I'm coming out with a second edition of Reborn, right? Okay. So the past 3 years have not are not included in that first edition, and there's a lot that's happened, a lot that's transpiring. So, for example, sitting here, being appointed as the graduate assistant to a retired judge at U of M, to working for the mayor of Detroit, Mike Duggan, for 18 months, to launching many different things, but also a lot of healing and processual type, I think, evolution and evolvement and elevation. So I'm excited. Probably I'm looking to have a release on January 22nd, 2000 and what is that, 21 now? That'd be 21. So I'm looking for a release in 21 as a 7-year anniversary, seven for the completion for that new release of Reborn. And so I'll keep working at it, praying on it, but see, ultimately, once again, not my will, but His be done.
Sure. And then I'm sure we'll have you back on again. We'll be able to discuss it when it launches, and we can get that. That'd be a source of encouragement.
I'm going to get you and Rick a author copy of that reentry book.
Perfect.
I got some copies coming in the next couple of weeks.
Great. I'd love that. I'd really appreciate it. Rick, you got any last thoughts before we close out?
No, just wanted to, like you said, Nate, just echo that. Thanking everybody for tuning in. Appreciate you all sharing it. Let everybody know too, next week we have Cozine Welch from A Brighter Way will be our guest. Hopefully we'll be having Mario's new colleague, Aaron Kinzel, on in a couple of weeks from Youth Justice Fund. We're locking down a date with him. So yeah, just stay tuned, and we hope to see you next week.
Thanks a lot, fellas. Take care.
We'll see you guys next week, every Thursday, 10 a.m. We'll see you then. God bless.